With his January 17th video titled "It's Time to Stop," Steven Crowder, host and owner of the biggest conservative channel on YouTube, an equally impressive channel on Rumble, and the website Louder with Crowder, spent 28 minutes airing his grievances and concerns that conservative media entities are overly helpful to big tech control of speech and questioning the effects such business agreements have on the culture and the country. Crowder described terms offered to him by an unnamed at the time big conservative media company. "I immediately thought of bad music industry contracts you hear about all the time." He referred to conservative corporations that use contracts to enforce cancel culture as Big Con. Crowder ended by requesting that viewers enter their email addresses at the website stopbigcon.com to gauge public interest in the issue. Several shady clauses immediately stood out. For example, penalties up to 20% if a video was demonetized or removed on platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify, or if sponsors dropped his show. Crowder's social media, merchandise, and subscription profits go to the company, with no bonuses for exceeding benchmarks. Crowder's existing videos would move behind the company's paywall. There was a flat dollar amount for a 4-year term that could be extended at the pleasure of the company. There would be at least 4 ad reads per episode. Crowder found the terms so awful that he didn't even redline the offer. He just told the company to send something better. Crowder called the penalties for going afoul of the vague, ever-changing sensitivities of big tech a roadmap for suppressing certain conservatives or content. This, of course, is particularly unsuitable for Crowder, whose show YouTube has demonetized for years. Meanwhile, Crowder's profits come from Mug Club subscriptions, a few loyal sponsors, and merchandise. He employs approximately 25 people, producing frequently expensive skits and traveling features like Change My Mind. Crowder's video ended with a plea that those who sent the offer reach out to him to make a way forward that would not handcuff future young conservative talent. Jeremy Boring of the Daily Wire quickly posted an hour-long response, focusing on the terms being part of an initial offer and claiming that they'd negotiate changes to the numbers and episodes per year and the amount on fines. He really emphasized the $50 million offer multiple times. Boring was portraying Crowder as unbusinesslike. But if you really think about it, he also copied Crowder's model. Some content free on YouTube, controversial content for subscribers. Videos were soon posted by several Daily Wire personalities and other content creators, including Lauren Chen, Tim Pool, Robert Barnes, Megan Kelly, and Jeremy of The Quartering, to name a few. Crowder's next video was titled "I Don't Want to Do This," featuring portions of a phone call with Boring, who dismissed the conservative movement being able to make profits while decoupling from restrictive big tech. Boring says the personalities who sign with the Daily Wire, he says they can be wage slaves for a few years, and would leave the Daily Wire with their fame and able to make new content while Daily Wire owns part of them, and terms that overwhelmingly favor the Daily Wire, well, he says they're just business. Crowder emphasized that he's not talking about himself. He's talking about cultivating upcoming creators and not bending to big tech's whims. He gives his word that Mug Club will never take ownership of creators' social media platforms or any YouTube monetization. He made one final plea to the Daily Wire. If you promise that future contracts will exclude penalties for actions of platforms or advertisers, this all stops. Now, while the Daily Wire personalities have made personal attacks on him, Crowder only compliments the intelligence of Andrew Klavan and Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson's massive positive influences. Now, Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, on the other hand, have both taken positions of "it's all business" and "what a backstabber recording a friend." Several people, including attorney Robert Barnes, say a friend would never send a friend a contract with so many egregious clauses, and in this situation, he would recommend recording calls. Crowder appeared on Tim Pool's January 23rd show to discuss motives and strategies for opposition to big tech. With serious heart problems, Crowder wants to go from performing to producing and help new creators and free speech to flourish. Now that night, attorneys Nick Rakita and Robert Barnes posted a discussion. Barnes said the Daily Wire contract was the worst contract he had ever seen. Now, according to Barnes, the terms could have left Crowder owing the Daily Wire money and having to provide content even if the YouTube demonetization or the loss of one or more sponsors didn't lose the Daily Wire any money. And once again, there were no terms offered that would give Crowder more money if merchandise, advertising, or subscriptions matched or exceeded certain goals. Barnes had an interesting observation. A signed contract means that the parties will have to cooperate and trust each other. He said lawyers who view a contract as an instrument for extracting maximum benefit for one side are incompatible with the goal. Barnes said he's often seen two business entities hash out an agreement, only to have the lawyers ruin it with clauses that extract maximum benefit for one side instead of looking to maximize both parties' profits and trust. He also noted that the reactions by Daily Wire personalities who chose to speak might cause the public to be suspicious that they are restricted in their public remarks, as Crowder would have been had he accepted the offer. Many defending the Daily Wire emphasized that this was a term sheet proposal, not a contract, and changing clauses are why they have lawyers. But the more clauses lawyers address, the more money it costs the parties. Of course, pretty much all the Daily Wire defenders jump out there emphasizing on a $50 million price tag, because that's huge money after all, right? Well, that ignores that Crowder would be paying production costs of 192 episodes per year for 4 years. That amounts to around $65,000 per episode, and that's assuming no platform gives him the boot or advertisers penalize him. Then, of course, their argument shifts to Crowder is a bad friend. Really? Really, folks? Who's the bad friend here? I've had friends offer me one-sided opportunities in the past, and let me tell you, it's a spit in the face, and obviously far, far worse, coming from a supposed friend. Now that we've gotten through the details of the situation, well, despite Candace Owens and her idiotic rants on Tim Pool's show, I tell you what, that little mean girl can go from hero to zero in seconds flat. Anyways, now here's the deal from my perspective, since we're all just kind of silently mandated to do so over this little tiff. And this, without a doubt, will be the longest rant I've ever gone on to date. And keep in mind, full disclosure, I don't have a dog in this fight. I have things I like about Crowder and things that annoy the hell out of me about him, like where the hell is not gay Jared, and why the hell can't you just give us a straight answer on what happened with him? And then there's Ben Shapiro. He's got a pretty big team over there. I'm just going to focus on him, though. Now, I do appreciate the fact that over the years, you've been able to go across the country to any given campus and verbally bitch slap any liberal student you can find. But on the other hand, you've never seen a war you didn't want to get involved in. And you gave Donald Trump zero credit for being probably the best president towards your folks that's ever been. Now, I know you're a hell of a debater, and you've given us tons of meme material to target the left with. But at the end of the day, you're really just a rhino with a microphone. Okay, moving on, or we're never going to get through this. 2 years ago, I was working my way up the content creator ladder to about 250,000 subscribers, producing 2 to 3 videos a day. Much bigger, and it would have been a lot harder for YouTube to just wipe me out. So I had a feeling it was coming. That and everyone frankly worth a shit at effectively communicating the political and social surroundings we were and still are living through in this country were being taken out left, right, and sideways on a daily basis. And honestly, if it wasn't for the advertising group I was working with, I would have been taken out way before I was. You see, as far as the social media scene was concerned, we were winning the culture wars hands down, and it wasn't even close. So after the 2016 election, all of the social media fat cats decided they were going to eliminate any politically effective communicator in these spaces. But they didn't just start wiping out the big fish. So they swept through the smaller channels, erasing anyone that they saw that fit the bill or was a genuine threat. Quite a few of them at first did get lucky. They were paying absolute attention to the forbidden language updates, following all the ever-changing rules. It got so bad, that it got to the point where I was watching the quartering every day just to see if I could pick up on any new language he was using so I knew which words they were really looking for. It got so bad at some points where you didn't even want to post a video after something like a school shooting went down because they would just twist and find any way to take you out. It felt like some crazy daily game of whack-a-mole. Now, some survived with just a few strikes here and there, but looking back, I bet they feel pretty shitty, knowing that they sold their souls to the Google gods, only talking about the currently approved topics. I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. Now, in the meantime, they were shadow banning everyone on the right, and I mean everyone, and still are to this day, hence me only having 1,100 subs on this new channel. Growth is almost non-existent. Oh, what's that? You don't think they're shadow banning? Well, Glenn Greenwald has 132,000 subscribers. The same guy that's on Tucker Carlson like every other night. That's insane. Megyn Kelly, who drew more primetime viewers than Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity at Fox, has 700,000 subs. Move along. There's nothing to see here. Anyways, and as a creator, there's a psychological aspect to this. You see, they know we inside this twisted game of stop the message see what's going on, but when you are a bigger player, you can't talk about these things, right? Because the goal is to get the political message out. That effectively became my life's mission for quite some time. I mean, for crying out loud, I originally played background music in an attempt to throw off the algorithm. Does it work? Well, obviously not too well, at least at certain points. But at this point, it's as much a part of the channel as my damn voice, so the music stays. Anyways, there's a lot more on this topic I'd love to dig into, but you've got better things to do, I'm sure. The reason why I'm sharing all these inside details with you that hopefully are somewhat interesting is to say I understand why Crowder is so pissed off at the idea of the Daily Wire playing ball with Google. But the reality is he had years, and more importantly, the financial ability to do something about this. Let me ask you a question. If 75 to 80% of the conservative creators picked up and went to just one other social media platform, would you go with them? Now just imagine what things would be like if this had taken place 6 years ago when YouTube really went all in on silencing conservative voices. Imagine the difference. All or most or enough of the advertising revenue would have followed eventually, so the creators would have been compensated. But just imagine the difference in coverage during COVID or the 2020 election or J6th or the riots that were going on all across the country all summer. The truth would have been available. The conversations that needed to be had would have been had. And here's the important thing. They would have been had when they needed to be had. And sure, the media and big tech would have come for whoever ended up hosting this content. But even in that event, it would have put that much more pressure on the government to do something about censorship. Bottom line is, the left has nothing without censorship, folks. Because on the battlefield of ideas, they don't stand a chance. And this is why they essentially bribe big conservative outfits like the Daily Wire and Tim Pool. To be able to say, what do you mean? Look at Tim. Look at the Daily Wire. We're doing nothing wrong here. We're not censoring conservatives. Come on. And of course, B, always a second or third priority, but still a priority nonetheless, is the revenue from these bigger conservatives. It's massive, and it's safe revenue. If you have soft control over them, it's a win-win, folks. Now, I know I'm probably pissing off a few of you that are Daily Wire fans or Tim Pool fans. I have nothing against either one of them, but to go back on Ben Shapiro, I remember him saying something to the effect of, facts don't care about your feelings. And the fact is, Joe Rogan had, some sort of special permission to bring on damn near anyone that he wanted. Then all of a sudden, I noticed after Joe's gone, Tim's hosting, as an example, Steve freaking Bannon. What the hell? I got demonetized if I even talked about Steve Bannon. But this guy can yuck it up for 3+ hours? Really? So of course, just to be clear, they don't hand them suitcases full of money. But they let them become the big fish in this huge pond with some promise as they thin the stock, i.e. your competition. leaving anyone left at the top to rake in huge viewerships and, of course, huge profits. Okay, now to wrap this little contained meltdown of mine up. They're both at fault here, folks. The Daily Wire by far is the worst because they are on the big tech team, no matter how they spin the BS. Penalizing creators for not following these batshit crazy, all over the place, ever-changing guidelines isn't fair at all, especially if you own someone's freedom to create. I remember watching decent-sized channels get completely taken down in one night over covering breaking news, like in the moment. Remember the Vegas shooting? YouTube was chopping heads off that night. It was crazy. Okay, now with Crowder. Oh, cry me a river. He made a choice years ago to cover his own ass, hence the Mug Club. Your sudden midlife crisis doesn't excuse that you guys should have gotten together years ago and found a way to wean this entire space off of this disgusting platform. Period. You had the power, the popularity, the money. That's how this works. Well, that's my off-the-cuff 2 cents. Hope there's a few subscribers left after this. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. There's a PayPal link in the description box, so please put $1 in the bucket on the way out the door. I'd like to thank everyone for all your donations. They're much needed and much appreciated. Now, with all that being said, we'll see you next time.
Come on, move. Move. Easy, easy.